for my Stan. Big tennis for the Devils
I'm
tonight.
sorry.
Well, hi again, everyone. I'm Matt Loughlin, along with my good friend, a man who really needs no introduction. But we have to say that he is a member of the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. The press box at UBS Arena has been named in Stan Fischler's honor. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The Maven Stan Fischler is here. Stan, we're reprising Matt and the Maven, the fun that we had covering the Devils, what that was now, maybe 20 years ago when we were at the Heights doing that. But my dad used to say, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. So listen, this thing never gets old. I'm so happy to see you.
I always felt that we had more fun than our audience.
A lot of times we just cracked up laughing
did.
and nobody knew why, including
right.
one Ken Danico as he was making the transition after his playing days to media, and he joined us for a couple of intermissions, and I don't know, the chair fell, your foot got stuck, we're back.
We got brand new chairs. It was a big event, and I didn't know that the lever on the bottom did anything. So I put my hand, and I became a submarine.
And listen, it's live TV. Roland Dratch, our producer, and Joe O'Rourke, our director, were like, go. And Kenny Danico was like, I can't. The look on his face was like, what's going on here? This is professional. This
Called
is
lockjaw.
Called lockjaw. But what I do remember about that, aside from the fact that we couldn't stop laughing, is that as we came on, and I think we were promoting an upcoming game, so there was a graphic over us initially, and all the audience heard was, my foot is stuck, and that was you, and that kind of set us all off. All right, so that's something that we talk about, and we did have a lot of laughs. No laughing matter, though, is when the Devils came to New Jersey. I mean, listen, this is a fantastic story, 40 years, starting at the Meadowlands and now playing here at Prudential Center in Newark. Just in general, your thoughts of a team, an organization that's celebrating its 40th year.
The great thing was that they had a savior, and the savior was Dr. McMullen. Dr. McMullen bought the team. If he hadn't come along, who knows? The team failed in Kansas City. The franchise failed in Denver. It was sold to a guy in Buffalo. And Doc came along. Doc, of course, had the experience in baseball, which was key. But more than that, he had the two other ingredients. He had the dough, and he had the passion. And he had this passion not only for sports and his hockey team, he had the passion for New Jersey. He was he was like a New Jersey cheerleader. But he was a tough, you can't fool around with the Doc. And without him, there wouldn't have been a team. So the fact that Doc came along at the right time was wonderful.
And the rest, as they say, is history. But the early years were tough. He expected bigger crowds. They didn't come out until the team started to win, and even then it was a bit of a tough slog until they established themselves. But my point is, you covered the Rangers, you covered the Islanders. The Islanders were in the midst of their heyday when the Devils come to New Jersey. So what was it like covering this team that was just trying to get going?
It was an adventure, and the first part of the adventure was the draft. And of course, they drafted Rocky Trache, whose name wasn't Brian. He was sorry, wrong guy, wrong way. But we got Patty Verbeek, we got Kenny Danico in that draft, and there were some good moves along the way. But I'm a student of Shakespeare. Shakespeare had this great line, sweet are the uses of adversity. Sweet are you too, but sweeter was Shakespeare than you. Anyhow, there was a lot of adversity, and of course we went through coaches. But my favorite coach was Doug Carpenter.
Why?
Because we did a game. That's when Al Albert was doing the game. He was very good, when Marv's brother. And we did a game in Chicago. And this is the only thing I think this ever happened in NHL hockey. There was a bad call against the Devils, and Carpenter was fit to be tied. He calls the referee over. This is exactly what he did. He did not say a word. For 15 seconds, he was like this, looking at this referee, and the referee didn't know what the hell to do with him. And of course, finally, the referee did an orderly retreat. But I've never seen a guy do that. And of course, he was a redhead with steely eyes. And of course, he got his message across without saying one single word. Never saw that before or since.
Doug Carpenter's image fresh and sharp in your mind all these years later. So what was that like? You mentioned Chicago. I don't know if it's the same Chicago where Johnny Mack scores the overtime goal, sends the Devils to their first playoff run. What do you remember about that first run? Not just getting to the playoffs, going to the Eastern Conference Final.
Well, first of all, Carpenter got canned.
Yes.
And the way he got canned was the team was doing okay in 87, 88, and then they'd slip a little. Then they had a little rally, and it was December. And I remember this like it happened 2 minutes ago. The next game was with the Rangers. And we all felt somehow this is going to be a make or break. We beat the Rangers. Wow, we're going to make the playoffs. Went into the Garden. They got beaten 9-3. It was terrible, terrible feeling. And of course, Lou Lamoriello was there by that time. And I know that Lou was on the phone looking for the right coach. And he comes up with Jim Schoenfeld. You couldn't be more right than that. You know, they say I'd rather be right than be president. I'd rather be right and have Jim Schoenfeld at that point. And, well, you're laughing. I'm not making a joke.
No,
I'm being serious.
I'm just never sure after all these years
I'm not sure
which road we're
I'm not
veering
sure
down.
either, so it doesn't matter. The point is, they were way the hell behind, and they started, and they were playing for Jimmy, and then, of course, it came down to the, to the last week of the season. They're still trailing. He's still trailing. They went into Buffalo, and of course, Sean Burke came in, and he was like the miracle goalie, but he was getting tired. And Schoenfeld did this fantastic thing. He put in Bob Sauvé. And Bob Sauvé came up with a tie. Played phenomenal. I guess it was against Buffalo, but they got a point. Of course, that led to the final games of the season. And of course, the Rangers had that game on Sunday, and they beat Quebec. I believe they shut them out. And then came our game in Chicago, and we had to win that game. And you know what happened?
OT, baby.
Yeah, but I was doing Bill Mays' show, and we had to go
Sports
on.
Extra?
Yeah, and
for those of a certain age.
And Mays was a big, big Devils fan. He didn't like the Rangers.
Really?
Okay, yeah, he didn't like the Rangers, and we were watching the game. They tied the game, and just when the overtime started, we had to go into the studio. We're not watching the game, and I can't remember being on more pins and needles in my life, and about sitting in the studio, not knowing anything that's going on, and all of a sudden, a copy boy comes in with a beat-up piece of cardboard. I don't know what the hell he was doing with that, and he turns it over, and he had the Devils won the game. I thought this was the greatest moment in the world, really did. And later on, Bill took us out for drinks because he loved it too. And you know what the best part of that was?
What?
He picked up the check.
He paid. I knew you were going there with that one. I anticipated
What was better than that?
Nothing. Nothing.
What a
like
double dip.
If it's free, it's for me. I
What a
understand.
double
Hey,
dip.
real quick. So they go to the playoffs, as you mentioned. You were there, Mother's Day, off-ice guys. I mean, had you ever seen anything previously like that? Or since?
Nothing was close, because I knew these guys. I knew Godleski, Jersey guy, and then, of course, Jimmy Sullivan. I used to play hockey against him. I played bad hockey. He played good hockey, but I once tripped him. I pulled him down with his ankle and got away with it. No referee. It's great beer look hockey. And, of course...
Paul McGinnis, of course.
Huh?
Have to remember Paul McGinnis.
The best.
Yep, he was
He got
part of
my
that
kid
too.
into Yonkers hockey. But these guys were, can you imagine being thrust into a situation like that? And then they give these guys, they didn't even have stripes. They weren't even zebras. They went in, it was Yellow Sunday. They were wearing the yellow stuff. I still, that was one of the most exciting games I've ever seen in my life. And it was very tough for them. Very tough for them. They did the best job they could. And of course, we all hated the Bruins anyhow. You got to hate the Bruins. And they were more hateful than ever. And they thought, they could push these guys around. And these guys did the job. We won the game. Won the game. You remember how late it started? Because the Devils were in court. Devils were in court.
Might have had a little help there too.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
I could use a lot of help. They
no
got a
question.
little help.
Many times I was looking for a little help too, and an exit strategy. They didn't win the Stanley Cup that year, but they've won 3 since. Fish, you've been a part of all of them. It's great to go down memory lane with you.
Well, you know that 7th game in Boston. If Patty Verbeek scores that goal, zip, zip. Reggie Lemon made the greatest save in his life. He told me that. He told me it was his greatest save in his life. If Patty scores that goal, we could have gone to the final. But, I told you Shakespeare, what he said? There's much virtue in if.
And there's much
And
virtue.
let me tell you, if my name was Matty Loughlin, this show would have been mine. It would have been the Maven and Matt.
He would have interviewed himself, and some might think that that was a good idea. Anyway, Fish, always good to see you.
Same to
Always
you.
good to
Same to
go
you.
down memory lane.
Okay.
Stan Fischler, the Maven, joining us.